Millions of drivers who switch to electric cars are now switching back to gas, and once you see the actual numbers, it stops sounding crazy and starts sounding obvious. This isn't a hunch or a Reddit thread. Americans bought just 212,600 new EVs in the first quarter of 2026, down from 296,304 in the same quarter a year earlier, a 28% drop. Market share dropped from a 12% peak in September of 2025 down to under 6% within months. Sales have crept back up a little since, up 14% in the second quarter compared to the first, but they're still down more than 20% from where they were a year earlier. A McKinsey survey found 46% of American EV owners now say they're likely to buy gas for their next car. Something changed, and once you go through it piece by piece, you'll understand exactly why, because none of these 5 reasons are rumors, guesswork, or hearsay from an internet forum. They're all sitting right there in the actual sales and repair data from this year. Here are 5 real reasons drivers are walking away from electric cars in 2026. Number 5, the tax credit disappeared and the math flipped overnight. For years, the federal government paid you up to $7,500 to buy an EV. That credit expired on September 30th, 2025. It didn't get replaced, reduced, or extended. It just ended. Buyers who'd been waiting rushed to close deals before the deadline, which is why EV sales briefly spiked in September before the credit died. Then October hit and the bottom fell out. The average new EV now sells for somewhere between $51,981 and $55,273. The average gas car sells for around $45,510 to $48,039. That's a gap of $6,000 to $10,000, and it used to be softened by a credit that no longer exists. Automakers panic. Hyundai cut the price of the 2026 Ioniq 5 by nearly $10,000 the same week the credit expired, just to keep buyers interested. Across the industry, manufacturers are now spending an average of $5,700 per EV in incentives just trying to replace what the government used to cover, and the average monthly payment on a new EV still climbed to around $760. A GM executive said it plainly before the deadline even passed: consumers will always choose the cheaper technology. He turned out to be right. Industry analysts have called this a recalibration period, where automakers are basically trying to figure out what real organic demand for EVs looks like now that the government isn't subsidizing the decision anymore. Number 4, charging isn't the problem people expected, reliability is. Everyone talks about range anxiety, but ask actual EV owners what bothers them, and you get a different answer. It's not whether the battery can go far enough, it's whether the charger will even work when they get there. Researchers actually gave this its own name, charge anxiety, a term that's slowly replacing the older idea of range anxiety in the actual academic literature on this topic. It breaks down into 5 separate worries. Will the plug physically fit your car? Will the app or payment card actually work at that specific charger? Is the charger even in a convenient location? How long is this going to take? And how much is it actually going to cost? JD Power data shows about 1 in 7 charging visits on non-Tesla networks fails to complete. A Harvard Business School study that reviewed over 1 million charging station reviews found public chargers work reliably only about 78% of the time. Imagine pulling into a gas station and having a 1 in 5 chance the pump just doesn't work. That's the daily reality for a lot of EV owners who don't have access to Tesla's supercharger network, which still sets the bar for uptime that almost nobody else has matched. It's exhausting in a way that never shows up in a spec sheet, and it's a genuinely different kind of stress than simply watching a fuel gauge, since with gas, you already know exactly how long a fill-up takes and exactly what it'll cost before you ever pull in. Before we get to the 2 reasons that really explain the shift, hit that like button. It genuinely helped this channel keep making videos like this. There's actually a strange side effect of all this too. While new EV sales crash, used EV sales jumped 12% in the same period, since the average used EV now sells for around $34,653, down about 6% from a year earlier. Buyers who still want an EV are increasingly choosing to let someone else eat the depreciation first, which tells you a lot about how confident people currently feel about paying full price for one. Number 3, insurance and repairs cost more than owners expected. On average, EVs cost $3,159 a year to insure in 2026 compared to $2,218 for a gas car, according to Insurify. That's not a small gap, and it compounds every single year you own the car, quietly adding up to thousands of dollars over a typical ownership period that never gets mentioned in any comparison of purchase price alone. It also isn't spread evenly. A Chevy Silverado EV insures for about $1,947 a year, close to a comparable gas truck, while something like a Tesla or an Audi e-tron can run past $10,000 a year once you're looking at full coverage on the more expensive models. The reasons are mechanical, not random. EV repair claims run about $1,030 higher on average than gas car claims, according to CCC Intelligent Solutions. A collision repair takes 15.6 days on average for an EV versus 12.7 days for a gas car, because fewer shops are certified to work on high voltage systems, and a lot of parts only come from the manufacturer with no aftermarket alternative the way gas cars have. LexisNexis found EV claim frequency is 17% higher than the overall vehicle average too. There's also a total loss risk that gas cars simply don't have in the same way. Even a moderate collision can force an insurer to write off an EV completely if the battery pack gets compromised, since inspecting or replacing that pack can approach the value of the entire car. None of that shows up when you're comparing sticker prices at the dealership. It shows up a year later on your insurance renewal. Number 2, a dead battery can cost more than the car is worth. This is the one that scares people once they actually hear the number. Replacing an EV battery pack runs anywhere from $5,000 to $22,000 depending on the model. A Tesla Model 3 pack lands between $13,000 and $20,000. A Model S or Model X can cross $22,000. Gas engines don't have a single component that can wipe out that much value in one repair. And it's not just a worst-case scenario sitting in the back of people's minds. It directly affects resale. Battery health degrades by roughly 2.3% a year on average, though it isn't the same for every driver. Cars that rely heavily on fast DC charging degrade at up to 3% a year, roughly double the rate of cars charged mostly at home on a regular outlet. Once a used EV's battery health drops below 85%, buyers start negotiating hard, sometimes walking away completely, and analysts have found that every single point of battery health lost below that threshold pulls resale value down by more than a full percentage point. You're not just buying a car anymore, you're buying a countdown on an expensive part, and unlike a transmission or an engine, there's no thriving used parts market yet to soften that bill if it comes due outside the warranty window. Number 1, winter genuinely breaks the range promise. This is the reason that catches new owners off guard the hardest, because it's not a rare edge case, it's just what happens every single winter. Real-world testing shows EVs lose somewhere between 20 and 45% of their range in freezing conditions. Short, cold trips with the heater running can cut that range by as much as half, since warming the cabin pulls straight from the same battery that's supposed to get you down the road. Not every car handles it the same way. A Tesla Model X with a good heat pump retained about 89% of its rated range in one recent winter test, while a Volkswagen ID4 without a heat pump kept only 63%. A separate test out of Norway found heat pump-equipped EVs averaging 18.5% range loss at -10 degrees Celsius, against 31% for cars still using older resistive heaters. That's a real difference. But even the better cars still lose a meaningful chunk of range the moment the temperature drops. A driver who bought a car rated for 300 miles can end up looking at 180 or less on a January morning, and that's not a defect. That's just cold weather and physics. For anyone who lives somewhere with a real winter, that gap between the number on the window sticker and the number on the dash in February February is enough on its own to send them back to a gas station. And it's the kind of thing you don't really appreciate until you're the one sitting in a cold driveway watching the range estimate drop faster than the actual miles you've driven. Add all 5 of these up: the lost tax credit, the charging reliability problem, the insurance and repair costs, the battery replacement risk, and the winter range hit, and the 46% of EV owners considering a switchback stops sounding surprising. It starts sounding like the obvious result of real math finally catching up with a technology that was, for a while, propped up by a $7,500 head start. None of this means EVs are a bad idea for everyone. Plenty of drivers with home charging and mild winters still come out ahead financially over 5 to 7 years of ownership, and the technology itself keeps getting better every single model year. But for a lot of Americans in 2026, the numbers just stopped adding up the way they used to, and that's the actual story behind the headlines. Not some sudden collapse in the technology itself, and not some conspiracy against electric cars either. Just ordinary math finally catching up. Which of these 5 would actually change your mind? The credit, the charging, the insurance, the battery, or the winter range? Drop it in the comments and subscribe for more breakdowns like this before you make your next car buying decision.